What's going on, guys? I'm a bit late with the Thundercracker review, but here it is. I went ahead and maxed him out. He's going to be rank 5, level 50. And signature, I went ahead and used an awakening program on him, and I fed him a couple signature upgrades just to get him up to level 5. So real quick, we're going to check out his abilities. And just real quick, he basically he's like a carbon copy of Starscream animation-wise. Everything is pretty much the same from the special 1, special 2, even the special 3, pretty similar. So I'm a little bit disappointed that Kabam wasn't able to, change him up a little bit, but I mean, that's okay, we'll take it. It's a new bot. It was a neat little surprise, so that'll do for now. And let's go ahead and read this. So signature is Ascension. All attacks, every 5 consecutive melee attacks dealt while not debuffed, grants a 5.6% melee buff for 7 seconds. Melee attacks have a 0.2% chance per signature ability to purify any debuff. At the start of each fight, increase attack by 0.2% of the enemy's bonus attack for each signature ability level. So that very last part, I think it has to do with like mods on enemies that you're going up against. For example, like Primal in Revenge of the King. This signature in theory should be able to increase your attack by a certain percentage based on the bonus attack. So I think Primal's like 300% attack bonus on the mod that he has. So I don't know, math is hard right now. I don't know what 2% of that is, 0.2%. But anyways, let's go ahead and keep reading. So every 5 attacks basically he's gonna get a melee buff, and he has a chance to purify it. So a little bit like Grimlock. Passive, whenever a debuff is purified, gain an 8% melee damage buff for 7 seconds. Unstoppable against basic melee attacks while sidestepping. Okay, so that's new. I don't think I've seen that on anybody yet. After knocking the enemy out of their ground vehicle form, gain a 20% armor and 10% attack buff for 7 seconds. Okay, these are some new little abilities I haven't seen before. I'm assuming if like the enemy is going for like a heavy and you knock him out of it, you'll get this buff of 20% armor, 10% attack buff. I don't think that happens too often. I don't know, maybe against someone like Soundwave, but I don't know. Let's go and keep reading. All attacks 100% plus 100% attack when striking a bot in their ground vehicle form. So I'm assuming not like aerial forms. Thundercracker cannot land critical hits. Okay, that's very new and that's interesting. So that is actually good. That's going to be a Bone Crusher counter for sure. Make sure you guys bring Thundercracker. If you ever come across the Bone Crusher, he will never bleed. Unless you get hit by the specials though. But whenever Thundercracker would increase critical damage, he instead increases attack by 8% of the amount of critical damage that would have been added. Successful melee hits refresh all melee buffs active on Thundercracker. Okay. So that's pretty neat. You can get a bunch of like melee stacks with like your signature. Every 5 hits you get a melee stack, and successful melee hits will refresh it. I think the only downside to this, and possibly being, losing your buffs, is if you have to like bait out specials. You can have like 10 melee buffs, and then you gotta wait for like that mix master to use a special 2 or a special 1, and he never does. So that might, obviously that'll lose your buffs, but it's pretty easy, I think, to continuously stack the melee buffs again. Sidestepping after a melee buff also refreshes all melee buffs, so like a dash, an incoming dash, I would assume. A passive, entering the aerial alternate form purifies shock, burn, bleed, backfire, and daze debuffs. I don't know why they just don't say like a heavy attack. Or they could have added it here, right down here. Heavy attacks for each debuff purified in this way. This attack inflicts a burn debuff, causing 80% attack as heat damage over 7 seconds. Okay, so the more debuffs on you, if you're able to land that heavy, it's going to do a bunch of damage, bunch of burn damage, so not too bad. Ranged attacks gain a 10% melee damage buff for 0.9 seconds. That's pretty low. You probably end up losing those quite often, pretty quickly. Blocking, plus 15% block proficiency against melee attacks, an additional plus 15% proficiency against the melee attacks of ground vehicles. While above 15% health, block cannot be broken by attacks from bots in their ground vehicle form. Alright, that's pretty neat. So I'm assuming you won't get knocked down. You can just continue on. And actually, well, I don't know. We'll have to test it. I guess we'll have to. This guy seems a little. He has a bunch of stuff basically, so I have to test some certain things. Well-timed blocks refresh all melee buffs active on Thundercracker. Well-timed blocks against ground vehicles grant a 10% melee buff for 5 seconds and knock opponents out of their vehicle form. Okay, little parry there. Special attack 1. Each projectile hit grant a 10% melee buff for 2 seconds. Super low. Special attack 2, 2% additional damage for each active buff on Thundercracker. It kind of sucks that he doesn't do the armor break with the special 2. I think that would have been doing a bunch of damage, you know, a bunch of melee buffs, go for a special 2, same as Starscream, get the armor break, but only additional damage, so that kind of sucks. Special attack 3 inflicts a shock debuff, causing 100% attack as shock damage over 6 seconds. 2% shock damage for each active buff on Thundercracker, 5% shock damage for each active buff on the opponent. Okay, so if we're going up against someone like Mixmaster who continuously just passively gets a bunch of crit damage and special damage buffs, this special 3 might be able to do some good damage on him. Plus, if we have a bunch of melee stacks on us, that'll definitely help out. But Thundercracker, pretty good at basically nullifying any sort of debuffs. And the neat thing, I totally skipped over it, I was gonna mention it, is that he can purify backfires and daze debuffs, so good counter against, you know, backfire characters like Barricade, like Jazz, and the daze debuffs from Scorponok, so not bad, pretty good. But let us go ahead and jump right into that ROK famous Mixmaster fight, and we'll see how things go for him. This is the team that I ended up putting with him. His synergies aren't that good. I think a lot of them, the majority of them, are like Sky Assault, anti-evade. Look at all this anti-evade for these 5 guys, and then Sky Assault 4 as well with Windblade and Jetfire. And the only actual offensive synergy he has is Starscream Seekers, and to be honest, I think you'll want to keep going for like the melee hits more often than not. But I mean, this still helps him out. And so for that, I did put, let's see, who did I put? So I did Cyclonus and Galvatron for the Hand of Chaos. All Decepticon special attacks gain 15% special attack damage and 15% critical damage. But the thing I noticed is it doesn't show up here for Thundercracker. I don't know if Kabam missed it. So yeah, that was a little weird. I was like, you know what, I don't see that Hand of Chaos. He is a Decepticon, so I don't know why it wouldn't show up. But let me see, what else did I put on him? So the Seeker synergy, the anti-evade, the leadership synergy, 10% special damage from Galvatron, 10% power rate from Soundwave, and nullify resistance. So let's see how it ends up going for good old Thundercracker here. Gonna go ahead and mute my mic, guys, and I will catch you guys in a little bit. Oh man, guys, that one was pretty close. Honestly, at first, I was definitely going for like the wrong thing. I think going for special threes with Thundercracker probably isn't the best bet. The animation on the special three takes way too long, and then by the end of it, you're basically out of your melee buffs. So honestly, I would suggest just go for special twos over and over again. Keep that all those melees refreshed, and I think we got up to like 30 melee buffs and we were doing a whole bunch of damage, which I was very surprised because at first I was like, man, Thundercracker kind of sucks. But then it was like, all right, I'm definitely playing him wrong. Go for special twos, ignore the special ones. And yeah, this guy can, I think, definitely pump out some damage if he gets going. The downside, of course, is whenever you do have to bait out specials right before the enemy gets to a special three. I think that's the only downside is there's a high chance that you're basically gonna lose all of your buffs if the enemy decides, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna hold on to my specials until you whenever I want, and then you lose all your melee buffs, and that kind of sucks. But overall, not too bad. I do like the fact that he does purify any debuffs, the majority of debuffs. I don't think acids weren't listed on there, so it's only Mixmaster, but that's okay. Might do a second attempt going against Mixmaster, just going for special twos, and I'll probably do that sometime next week, guys. But honestly, not bad from Thundercracker. Like I said, once he gets going, I think he can be pretty good. But let me know your thoughts, guys, and yeah, I will catch you guys in the next one.